Monday the 28th of September at being 5:30. We will start the meeting. Council acknowledge and pay respects to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional and original owners and continuing custodians of this land. All persons in attendance are advised that it's Council policy to record Council meetings in accordance with Council's digital recording policy. The digital recording of this meeting will be made available to the public on Council's website for a minimum period of 6 months. Members of the public in attendance at the meeting who do not wish for their words to be recorded and or published on the website should contact a relevant Council officer and advise of their wishes. Item 1 is apologies, and we don't have any apologies. Item 2, declarations of interest for any items on this agenda. Do we have any declarations of interest? No? Moving on to item 3, procedural matters. Item 3.1.1 is confirmation of minutes of the council meeting of the 24th of August 2020. And I will note that there's a slight change from the that's on the edition.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any?
Yeah, thanks, Madam. Yeah, the amendment is appropriate, given that it did form part of the spoken word at the last meeting. So I think that's appropriate, and nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laycock.
Nothing to add there. It's quite clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 3.2 is public question time, and item 3.2.1 is responses to questions raised at prior meetings, and all those questions were actually answered at the meeting, so there is nothing to report there. Item 3.2.2 is questions on notice from the public, and they are listed there, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder of those, that we endorse those responses, please.
So moved.
Councillor Perry, do you have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Melbourne, Councillor Perry.
Appropriate answers to the questions and nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Melbourne.
Nothing further, thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Perry.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 3.2.3 is questions without notice from the public. And I have some questions here from Mr. Christopher Mills at 52 Caroline Street, East Devonport. Question 1. In answer to a question at the 24th of August meeting concerning the infrastructure and works team, Mr. Atkins' response was, numerous staff have trade-based qualifications in arboriculture. What is the exact title of these trade-based qualifications, and with which Tasmanian government institution is it accredited? Mr. Atkins.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, across Council's Parks and Reserves team, there are employees with a whole range of relevant qualifications, and I don't intend to provide detail on all of these, but suffice to say that Council is comfortable that its employees have appropriate qualifications and experience for the roles that they are undertaking.
Thank you. A second question from Mr. Mills. At the Council meeting of the 26th of March 2018, the councillors voted unanimously on the Planning Authority Matters Resolution 43/18-9, minutes on page 91. The developer of 56 Caroline Street is to negotiate with Council a right-of-way through the plan of the subdivision to allow Council access to maintain the public open space to the north of the subdivision at 54 Caroline Street, East Devonport. The blocks have now all been sold as of September 2020, and there is absolutely no right-of-way through the subdivision. Did any negotiation take place, and if so, what was the result of any negotiation with the developer about this right-of-way? Mr. Atkins.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Look, yes, negotiation was undertaken in regard to the note that Mr. Mills refers to, and as a result, the access to the public space through the laneway beside his property was considered sufficient.
Thank you. Questions from Mr Bob Bellicott, 11 Copper Place, Devonport. Question 1. The audit panel unconfirmed minutes of the 13th of August 2020, referring to the agenda on the 28th of September, states impact of COVID. The COVID response committee was set up in March, a decision taken by Council to ease the economic impacts on the community. As a result, parking fees were waived from the 25th of March to the 15th of June, which had an impact of $300,000 reduction in revenue. The committee also waived late fee penalties on the April rates instalment, a $28,000 impact, and waived ground charges for sports clubs, a $24,000 impact. Rental for community groups was also waived at a cost to council of $4,000. In addition, council followed the guidelines from the state government in relation to commercial tenants and waived halved rent as required. Will the General Manager A explain why the actual dollar revenue impacts as a result of COVID-19 are shown only for waived parking fees, late fee penalties for rates, ground charges for sports clubs and rental for community groups, and not for the total in dollar terms waived for commercial tenants? And B, reveal the total amount of revenue waived due to COVID-19 in relation to commercial tenants.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Yes, the minutes are simply a reflection of what was discussed at the meeting in regard to the rent relief provided in accordance with the state's COVID commercial leases legislation. The value of the assistance that Council has provided will be fully disclosed in our annual report.
Thank you. And the second question from Mr Bellicott. Due to the poor quality of the live streaming of council meetings in the delivery of both picture and sound, I ask, can council take action to improve the quality? Mr Atkins.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. The Council's comfortable that the standard of recording being streamed to YouTube is of sufficient quality. There's multiple aspects that can affect the viewing quality. And that includes the bandwidth on the device on which the stream is being viewed.
Thank you. Question from Ms Jenny Clare of Devonport. Question 1. The Valuer General has valued Providore Place at $3.5 million, including the land. The cost of the building was over $9.5 million, not including the land. Who is responsible for this situation? Can you explain how this staggering loss of value occurred? Question 2. The middle tenancy on the eastern side of Providore Place has never been let. It is a space without a kitchen, so it seems this space is not intended to be a restaurant. It is a space without a storeroom, so it seems it is not intended to be retail. Can you say what this space is intended to be for? And question 3, the aforementioned middle tenancy at Providore Place has been used as a storeroom since the building opened. It's been filled with an assortment of items, and yet this ugly mess has never been hidden by covers on the windows. Now the council is managing the building. Will the council take steps to cover these windows, thereby improving the look of the building? Mr Atkins.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. The current government valuation for Providore Place is $4.32 million, not $3.5 million. But regardless, there's not necessarily a direct correlation between the construction cost and the valuation. Construction cost is driven by market forces through an open tender process. The valuation is far more complex and involves consideration of other factors such as current commercial return and can vary considerably throughout the life of a building depending on its use at any particular point in time. Currently, Council has tenancy 3, which is the large middle tenancy, listed with its commercial agent, and is seeking to attract a food or tourism related business. And yeah, there's no intention to cover the windows whilst the property is being marketed.
Thank you. Questions from Mr Malcolm Garden of 4 Beaumont Drive, Devonport. Question 1. With reference to the statement on page 5 of the new commercial lease policy, in that the engagement of a specific legal advice will be determined after an assessment of the risk, scale or complexity of any specific lease proposal. Will Council advise as to who is qualified on Council to conduct the risk assessment, including of a commercial nature, and as a benchmark comparison, would circumstances similar to the initial Providore Place head lease arrangement require legal advice under the new policy? Mr Atkins.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. There could be any number of staff who would be applying the requirements of this policy, although as with any advice or operational decision, the General Manager is ultimately responsible. And yes, under this policy, legal advice would be sought for a lease such as the original Providore Place head lease.
Thank you. Question 2 from Mr Garden. It's been established that the expenditure to develop the Providore Place asset previously described as a major element of living city is about 10.2 million, including the land value. Will Council ensure that the fair value of Providore Place is accounted for in the annual report as 3.6 million as per the value of General's valuation, all in accordance with AASB 136? Mr Atkins.
Yes, Council's financial statements, which make up part of the annual report, have been prepared in accordance with all the relevant accounting standards, and they've been reviewed by Council's audit panel and are currently being audited by the Tasmanian Audit Office. The annual report will be publicly released prior to the AGM.
Thank you. And question 3 from Mr Garden. With reference to the amended public question time policy, and specifically the new section under questions without notice being to allow opportunity where necessary to research answers and limit questions taken on notice, a copy of any questions without notice, where possible, are to be provided by email or in person to Council by 12 noon on the day of the meeting. Will any councillor, when the policy is discussed at item 5.4 on tonight's agenda, put forward the following amended wording of a member of the public may at their sole discretion to allow opportunity where necessary to research answers and to limit questions taken on notice, provide a copy of any questions without notice by email or in person to Council by the 12th noon on the day of the meeting. And a note from Mr Garden. Council's the third tier of government, albeit without a defined opposition, with questioning of Council mainly left to members of the public. What would be the result if the other 2 tiers of government were able to force all questions without notice to actually be provided on notice, and even worse, only be read out by the Speaker? The ambiguity of the proposed wording in the draft public question time policy is unacceptable. As that's an item on the agenda, I won't be offering any response to that question. It will be discussed when the agenda item comes up. Questions from Mr Rodney Russell at 225 Steel Street, Devonport. Question 1, Hollyman Street reconstruction. Why do Council have the new footpath made with 6 power poles in the middle obstructing pedestrians? Mr Atkins.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. The layout of the streetscape, including the curved footpath and the power pole locations, remains largely unchanged. During the recent roadworks project, it was deemed cost prohibitive to relocate 6 power poles away from a footpath in a local street that has low pedestrian activity. However, it is recognised that the poles do create a narrowing of the path. At 5 of the locations, the path width is between 900 and a metre, which is acceptable in the circumstances. But at the 6th pole location near Percy Street, the path width is less than 800 mil. This is not acceptable from an accessibility perspective, so a widening of the footpath will be occurring around this pole in coming months.
Thank you. Question 2 from Mr Russell. Multi-level car park. As Council have placed an obstruction on Best Street to prevent vehicles east of Edward Street and Edward Street itself from entering the car park, would Council consider closing the Best Street entrance? And my response to that is Council does not have any current plans to close the Best Street entrance. Question 3, agenda item 6.4, general management, 1.1, common seal register. There's nothing to identify what document REG 610 is about. The other 28 have some identifying information. The plan of survey noted under that item relates to 5 Middle Road and 74 Fourth Street. Questions from Mr Graham Devon at 145 Percy Street, Devonport. At the August Ordinary Council meeting, the 3 questions I asked, all of which were addressed to the Council as a whole, were answered in one sentence by the Mayor, the response being, as previously advised, I do not intend to make any further comment or take any further action on the matter. Question 1, with regard to Council's Code of Conduct Part 2, did the Mayor declare to Council any conflict of interest or otherwise satisfy the requirements of Part 2 before discussing or answering my questions in agenda item 3.2.3? Question 2, with regard to Council's Code of Conduct Part 7.2 and Part 8.1, were the views of all councillors sought or listened to by the Mayor regarding the proposed answers to my questions before the Mayor answered them? And question 3, Given the response in the first person to my questions and part 8.4 of Council's Code of Conduct, does Council agree that my questions have not yet been answered by Council as a whole and will now be answered? I'll take those questions on notice and provide a written response. Question is from Mr. Doug Janney, 23 Watkinson Street, Devonport. Question 1, parking. At what proportion of the total paid plot hours will the multi-storey car park become commercially viable, i.e. rates, units and interest in the value of the building? Mr. Atkins.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Council is currently satisfied with the operation and the financial performance of the multi-storey car park. Multi-level car park's been constructed to cater for not only current but also future demand and ensure that Council is able to pursue other strategic development objectives across the CBD. Parking fees are set to align with the principles in Council's parking strategy, which are far broader than simply direct financial returns or returns at one single off-street parking facility. The overall portfolio of on and off-street parking capacity is actively managed to ensure adequate and convenient access to public parking within the CBD.
Thank you. Question 2, Providore Place. Why last Friday, when there was rain, was the north wall pouring water down on the footpath? Mr. Atkins.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Council don't have any record or any report of any water issues at Providore Place last Friday. I guess I can only assume that the water was from the overflow to the rainhead. It's only an assumption.
Thank you. And question 3 from Mr. Janney. Financial costs. Why have financial costs increased by 10.1% in 2 months?
Yeah, the discrepancy in the financial report is simply a timing matter. The actual payment of interest will vary across the year, largely due to the timing of the fixed components of Council's loan facility, whereas the budget split in the financial report has been applied as a straight line expenditure across each month.
Thank you. That brings the questions without notice to a conclusion. Item 3.3 is questions on notice from councillors, and we don't have any listed for this month. And similarly with item 4, planning authority matters. So we move on to item 5, which is reports, and item 5.1 is the incorporation of a section of Crown land into road corridor for the Bluff Access Road. Do I have a move, please?
So moved. Currently for discussions.
Councillor Jarman, do I have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Murphy, thank you. Councillor Jarman.
Yeah, look, got a bit of a problem with this one. I don't really agree with just rushing in and putting a roundabout in that area. And I think that I would like to look at doing a procedural motion, depending on how my fellow colleagues feel about it. I just think that perhaps we need to look into this a little bit more. We're spending a lot of money on a roundabout in an area that, yes, definitely needs something doing there. However, I think we could probably save some money and do it a little bit better. So I'm wondering whether I would get the support in taking this to a workshop and getting the council staff that are required to come in and talk to us about it and see if we can find a better way around to resolve the issue.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I think this particular item deals with acquisition of the land.
But it's saying about for the roundabout, we might not need to.
The next agenda item 5.2 is perhaps where you will put a procedural motion up to reconsider the roundabout.
Right.
This is the acquisition of the land itself.
Yeah, well, I might need some information from Matthew through that.
Thank you.
I just thought that we would want to go ahead and formalise the adoption of this section of land into a roundabout.
Got that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think through you, Mayor, it's my advice if council want to talk further about the roundabout, that's probably in the next item.
Okay.
There is this is only a slither of land, but it is quite a process to transfer that from Crown land, and I think council would be wise to continue with that process because it could take some time and just, I guess, allows options in how we do manage the traffic there if we proceed with this process.
So my next question would be, if we agree to this, these 2 recommendations, we can always decide against doing too much of widening the road if not needed. But we've got the option to do that. That's all you're wanting to do with this one?
Yes, Mayor, this report in front of council at the moment is really just to acquire that 58 square metres of land and make that part of the road reserve.
Okay, I just saw the word roadway and I thought, the roundabout, and I thought that this would be the one we'd have to act on. Look, well, I'm happy to move this motion as long as that allows us to have some input. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. That's okay, we've clarified at this point in time. Councillor Jarman is right, in the recommendation is for the purpose of installing a roundabout and access road, but I think the slither of land in itself is actually for the footpath, for the pedestrian crossing, the pedestrian way,
Right.
to widen that parcel of land, so it can, in effect, be placed in that particular area and not on the currently leased land, which is leased to the Bluff Caravan Park. So, as the recommendation stands there, and as has already been stated, we'll discuss what will happen in relation to the next agenda item, whether we defer that particular agenda item at the next stage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments in relation to this matter?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And further to that, if we were to acquire this slither of land and did nothing with a roundabout, then that slither of land is no burden for council to carry.
Okay.
And we've started the process, we don't want to elongate that, so I think we need to separate the two components. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Ennis?
Is that, from my understanding, is that that's for a pathway up on the left-hand side of the road? Is that what they're going to put in? Or not?
No. Mrs. Scurvy,
I'm confused.
but I think it's part of that whole process. But Mrs. Scurvy wants
So the pathway, through you, Mayor, the pathway is on the right-hand side of the road, heading north, up the Bluff Access Road. There's additional space required on the left-hand side of the road to accommodate the roundabout and a wider traffic lane.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Jarman to close.
Consider it closed, thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Please say aye. Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Moving on to item 5.2, tender report for contract CTO 271, the Mersey Bluff traffic improvements. Do I have a mover, please?
If I could have a procedural motion on this one,
The procedural motion is
that we don't go ahead with the decision here for the tender report, and that we put this back to a workshop for council discussion.
so, Councillor
Alternatives.
Jarman, you're asking a procedural motion to allow this item to lay on the table?
Yes, please.
That the matter be deferred. That's all I know.
Awesome.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
Councillor Perry.
Oh, okay.
If you don't debate a procedural motion, but it might be appropriate just to ask Mrs. Skirving just any consequences around timing or any other issues if we did defer the tender for a month.
Through you, Mayor, the package of works that we've brought back to council today is in accordance with the scope of the Mersey Bluff precinct traffic improvements that was adopted by council in 2018. It's in accordance with the capital works budget that was adopted by council, and we have tendered this on the open market, so we have a contractor ready to commence the work. We would need to advise that contractor of the delay, obviously, but the matters with council to determine how to proceed.
Thank you. I guess my concern is that we have already discussed this at workshop level. We've discussed this at our as part of our budgeting process. It was put forward as part of our planning for this financial year. To now decide that maybe that's not what we want to do, I think I'm not necessarily sure that I'm comfortable with that.
When did we discuss the roundabout at a workshop? I'm sorry, did I miss it?
It was part of, I'm sure it was part of our discussions around capital works for this financial year.
We didn't have that at the workshop.
I was just saying, Mayor, a procedural motion just should be put, it's not to be in debate.
In that case, I'll take what I just said and I will put the motion. All those in favour of the procedural motion that we allow this item to lay on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against?
Yes.
No.
No.
I will ask for a show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Hollister, Councillor Ennis, Councillor Jarman, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Perry and Councillor Alexia. Those against? Councillor Laycock, Councillor Milborn, Councillor Rockcliffe. The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5.3, disposal of land at 116 to 122 Stony Rose Road. Do I have a mover, please? Option 1 or option 2?
I'm happy to have that then.
Which option?
Oh, option 2.
Thank you.
I'll second
Councillor Laycock, Councillor Milborn, Councillor Laycock.
Yes, I'm happy to move that, and pleased to see in the 4 points we've got under option 2 is that the condition of sale is to require that a suitable public pathway be constructed on that land. So I think we're covering all our bases there. And I note in the comments as well that since we received that approach, it could be that the potential purchasers might be interested in purchasing and not swapping. So that's also good news. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Milborn.
it. Discussed at workshop and agree with the option 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Jarman.
Thank you. If I might ask a question through you to either Matthew or Mr. Skirving or Harley, I'm not sure who, sorry. Look, when we discussed it at a workshop level, I did express my concerns about allowing access off that land onto the main road. Would we put that into part of the deal so that we don't have that occurring?
It's through you, Mayor. I guess any conditions of sale would be part of the next step. So this is, because it's public land, there's a process council needs to go through, and really tonight it's just about resolving council's intent to sell the land, and then we need to advertise it, and then there's a further decision about proceedings. So at that point, we would get a valuation, and any other conditions that would be applied would come at that point.
The only reason I ask you, Matthew, is because you've put in that there has to be a pathway. So that's putting a condition on it. So I thought also that's when we then add that there wouldn't be any access onto the main road. So you're saying we could do that at a later stage, or we will do that at a later stage?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Yeah, that would be at discretion of council. They could do that at a later stage. Certainly the opportunity is not lost. Whether that's the view of council to include that or not, I'm not sure.
I think it's very important that we don't have anyone having access onto that main road from there. There could be units built there. There could be 4 or 5 different driveways that the developer could decide to make onto that main road. Isn't that just causing more traffic problems?
So I guess through you, Mayor, look, there's 2 ways. There could be an amendment tonight to include that. You're quite right.
Right.
But I was just pointing out that equally the opportunity's not gone should council wish to apply that. There'll be another chance to
Will it come to council level?
That's right. So
Right.
it'll come back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's an interesting little scenario, this one. A couple of points. I think in relation to access to the main road, I really don't see that as an issue taken into consideration. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 residences there already. At best, they'd probably get 2 more entrances potentially on that parcel of land. I think it's interesting that the proposal was put forward by the developer in relation to looking at a land swap. A land swap, in my opinion, may have been a reasonable option, taking into consideration that it was actually, there was some pluses here for the community, but also the environment, in relation to the protection of some swift parrot habitat, potential swift parrot habitat. So obviously there's really going to be very minimal value of the land, taking into consideration that it does have a rather extensive easement that runs through the property. So for a developer to take that on, I'll take my hat off to them. But, you know, I think we run the risk of underutilising a piece of land that's currently not really providing any social or community benefit to Devonport, and there is an offer on the table for us, for a developer to privately do something that's actually going to provide a return through rate revenue to the ratepayers of Devonport. So I think we just need to, I fully support if they're interested in buying it, but I think it needs to be, we need to keep the door open. If its evaluation comes back based on square meterage price, taking into consideration the easements and the amount of available usable land in that space, I think we would need to keep our minds open to actually a land swap. As I said, I think there's some real benefits for that precinct, and even looking into the future from a stormwater retention basis. So happy to support the motion, but I would encourage councillors to keep an open mind into the future.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Any other comments? I'll ask Councillor Laycock to close. Thank you.
Consider it closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 5.4, openness and transparency initiatives. Do I have a mover of the recommendation, please? Please?
I'll move it for discussion.
The policies we're talking about, the updated policies that we reviewed. Sorry. Councillor Hollister, Councillor Laycock?
Just point of clarification, it's 5.4, isn't it, on page 28?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes. So it's updating the policies that we've been.
Yeah, I think I better second it. We can't have this not being dealt with.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am, happy to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Hollister.
To move this, but I really don't agree with it. I think that most of our actions are covered by the Local Government Act and other various acts, and I think this is just a lot more red tape, green tape, whatever you want to call it. So I'm not going to vote for it.
Point of order, Mayor. If that's the case, why is Councillor Hollister the mover of the motion?
I'll seek clarification.
You can.
That's okay. So it's still entitled to move it. Yeah. Councillor Laycock.
Right, okay. Well, I think it's good that we've updated all our policies. I've particularly marked out the public question time policy because we've had a lot of issues with that. And I believe allowing the members of the public to ask 3 questions rather than the current 2 questions will be a lot easier for the general public that come in to ask these questions. And of course, where possible, the second dot point, that questions without notice that be provided in person by 12 noon. I think they're 2 very good changes there. I won't go into all the policies, they've been there for us all to read, but as I said, it's good to have them updated and to see that we're looking at them under the guidance of the Local Government Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm going to support the motion. I think, transparency initiatives are, I guess, they're a moving feast, and as time goes on, we will need to refine those particular items, and I think we've done that well in this. Obviously, we've had a lot of scrutiny over recent years, and I think we're responding accordingly. We've responded accordingly and updated our policies to reflect that we are taking it seriously. And as I said, next year we may look at it again. The year after, it's just one of those things. As we move on, the compliance is becoming a greater issue for all parts of society. It's just another element of that. So I'm happy to support the motion if the move is not.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Jarman.
I have a question in regards to the public question time policy. Based on, I had a discussion this afternoon based on Malcolm Garden sent an email to all of us. The questions were read out on there in question time, which is great. Question 3 that he had, he wanted to just get it clarified that it was based on the representative's sole discretion, not ours, on if, when it says where possible, questions without notice are to be provided by 12 noon on the day of the meeting. The discussion I had with him, I wanted to just understand what he was requesting of a change in wording. When I understood the where possible was discussed at a workshop, and I understand that we made sure that it seemed to be clear, but things can be interpreted differently. So I'm just asking, who makes the decision on the where possible? If a person does want to come in and just ask a question without notice, which is what it actually says, they're not going to be stopped from doing so.
That's not the intent.
No. So that's what I'm just clarifying, I suppose. The whole point of this is
That's never been the intent.
we're just hoping to get it on notice if we can, even though it's called questions without notice, which seems a bit of a...
The intent is to ensure that we can respond to most questions when they're asked, and reduce the number of times that we've needed to respond in writing, which creates work for staff.
Absolutely.
And delays the response to the question. And it's not my understanding, certainly not my intent to ever say, well, no, you didn't put it in writing.
And at the end of the day, there still can be questions without notice.
If that's what they would choose to do.
That's all I
They
want
need to
clarity.
accept that they might not necessarily get an answer on the night.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, yeah. My recollection was there was nothing sinister in the wording. The idea is to ensure that questions could be answered efficiently as possible. And so if you just get them a bit beforehand, then you can quickly get the answer rather than wasting time later on. So, but you can still do it on the night. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, it's like with most things, they're not always perfect first time around, but as Councillor Perry's alluded to, these are a moving feast, and as with most of these policies, can be updated realistically at any particular point in time. If and when a particular change is required, if something pokes its head up, we can deal with it. At least it gives us a base to start from, which I think is important, and agree with the clarification that people are still permitted to come in and ask questions, which I'd encourage them to do.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Are there any other comments, questions? Councillor Hollister to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm still going to stick to my point. I think there's enough policies and legislation under the Local Government Act and other various acts. I believe this is covered out by a very small element in our community that virtually disrespectful bullying by our council and council staff. So I'll stick to them guns.
Councillor Hollister, thank you. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against?
No.
I'll ask for a show of hands. All those in favour, Councillor Ennis, Councillor Jarman, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Lockwood, Councillor Perry, Councillor Laycock, Councillor Alexio, Councillor Milbourne, and those against, Councillor Hollister. The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5.5 is the Cradle Coast Waste Management Group Terms of Reference. Do I have a mover of the recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Milbourne, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Murphy, thank you. Councillor Milbourne.
I think it's all there in the terms of reference, and it's good to see that they're always striving to produce greater efficiencies in the development of waste and removal of waste. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
I agree with Councillor Milburn in relation to the terms of reference. A lot of work's been done. It's a fantastic organisation that has really sort of provided some real stability to dealing with waste across the region.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? Councillor Jarman?
Well, that's my night tonight. Look, I have an issue with site 1, 16 to 20 Edward Street. The community are starting to realise. Sorry?
We're talking about those.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've missed the point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Councillor Milborn to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll get the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 5.6 is COVID-19 response to the development of the stimulus package. Do I have a move of the recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Milborn, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Councillor Perry, thank you. Councillor Milborn.
I think this is a great way to stimulate the economy in Devonport. With things around council, it is slow moving, so it'll take 6 months to see this through to get to the next stage, but hopefully we'll see some fantastic expressions of interest, and it will be really good to see what the community would like to do, or developers within the community would like to do with some of our spots that we probably don't need now that we have a nice big shiny car park and other wonderful things moving in the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I support Councillor Milburn's comments on that. We have workshopped this, and I guess these are properties that belong to the community, and we totally accept that. So it's not as though council's trying to create a stimulus package for council or a stimulus stimulating environment for council. It's for the community. Now we of course have the expressions of interest process, which doesn't compel us to do anything with anyone at any time. It's just a matter of getting some ideas from developers, would-be developers that understand what they're doing and understand what makes an economy tick, and we as council will always have the right to accept or deny future development on those particular sites. We're acutely aware that there's a lot of community interest in this, and acutely aware that we need to make the right decisions on this, and those decisions will be purely based on what's good for the community and good for the future of the city. And it doesn't need to be any hyperventilation at this stage from any sectors of the community that think we're just in the business of selling off car parks and the like. We are not. We are into creating a stimulus and a better city for all in the community. And I think it's just a continuation of the Living City project, where we are building this city into something really special. Everyone can see that. Everyone knows that. Well, most know that. They come here, they haven't been here for 5 or 6 years. They see what's going on. The commercial investment interest in the city has never been at higher levels. The residential investment in the city has never been at a higher level, and that hasn't just happened. That's happened for a reason. It's because this council has been game enough to be proactive, and we will continue to be so, but with the best interests of the community in mind. And I just reiterate, this will be an expression of interest process, and we will make the right decisions when they land in front of us. We're not compelled to accept any offer from anyone or any developer. We will do what's right for the community at the time. So I hope fellow councillors will support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I think I'm right this time. So I have had quite a few phone calls in concerns re Site 1, 16 to 20 Edward Street. I certainly believe we need to do something with these different blocks of land, properties that we've got that we don't need anymore. We certainly need to get the economy going, and whatever we can do with the other properties, I've got no issue. I think we're just being a bit hasty with 16 to 20 Edward Street. Now, if we're going to wait for, to put out these expressions of interest, if we get an expression of interest and someone wants to pay us a really good price, why are we going to stop at not selling off Edward Street? My concern is we haven't really thought about the community and how they use it. It's a well-used car park, a well-loved car park, because it's on flat property, unlike Payne Avenue. It's not our multi-storey car park, which some people are averse to using, especially if you can't get your concession. And we certainly aren't helping our retailers who are struggling. We all know how hard they've been struggling, regardless of COVID, because of online. We've got people saying about everyone goes up to the Homemaker Centre because it's free up there. There's no charges on meters. There's no charge for parking. People go to Latrobe, people shop everywhere else but Devonport, and we're always getting criticised about not listening to the community. So I just think we're being hasty with Site 1. That's all. I just think we need to put Site 1 to the side and probably do a little bit of community consultation. I have been told by our General Manager that's what we would do if we got an expression of interest. So I just think I need to know that that's going to definitely happen, that if someone takes interest in Edward Street, that we find out that we are still in charge and that we can still find out from our community whether they still agree with us selling off. Once it's gone, it's gone. We don't get it back. So we've got to be very careful about making hasty decisions because we haven't been good at making decisions in the past, it's obvious. So I think we need to be careful. And I do have a question. What happens to the other part of the car park that we don't own? So if we're offering expressions of interest, that the rest of the car park, we lease that, so are we still going to be leasing that through to Matt or Matthew? How does that work?
There we go. Through you, Mayor. So council is operating on a month-to-month arrangement. There's put a formal lease in place, that additional parcel of land. I would anticipate that if there is commercial interest in the site, then the best possible yield potentially for that parcel of land would be a sale in conjunction with the council land sale also, but that would be a matter for the current property owners. We've reached out to them to have a discussion about that matter, and the appointed agent, I imagine, would be in contact with them as well to have that conversation. So I guess it would be preempting the outcome of the process to take a stab at what the developer community might come back at. We have had interest in those sites previously, so I would be certain that there would be commercial developers out there who are interested, quite possibly the owners of the former Red Hot CD site. I'm certain that they would be interested in the site as well.
Look, I just think that if I can have guarantees that we're going to then, if we get someone interested in that site, that we will definitely then get some community consultation happening to make sure that we've got the community on side for making a decision that I think we'll regret later on. Do I have the guarantee that we will do that?
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, any expression of interest will come back to council and absolutely at council's discretion what process it wants to follow from there forward, and that may include specific consultation on any specific site.
Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that's the intrinsic part of this particular motion, is the fact that this will be a partnership arrangement. I think ultimately council will have control. One of the things that I would not like to see happen within the CBD is wholesale selling of land for social housing. I think we need to be very careful about that, especially if we're looking to develop the city and the inner city. I don't think the development of a whole heap of social housing within the CBD is going to provide the CBD with any real tangible benefit. I think, having said that, the opportunities that exist for these particular sites, there's nothing to stop a developer from coming in there and leaving the car park, as it generates a reasonable level of revenue, and they'll build above it. So that'd be something that we potentially could encourage through council and working with any developer who's willing to spend that amount of money to do that. I think with the other sites that are there, again, I think that, realistically, they're going to have to come up with some pretty good plans moving forward to get any level of acceptance. I don't think it's going to be someone puts, I want to spend this amount of money and this is how much revenue you're going to get. I think there'll be some fairly hefty debate around accepting any proposals that are put forward. But yeah, it's a long way to go. I think this is just the first step in the process to see what interest is out there, what people are prepared to do, and what we're going to approve, which are three very, very different things.
Thank you. Councillor Ennis.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, despite what we think, we don't hold all the ideas. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who may well have some sparkling ideas for what they can do in these properties. This is an opportunity for people to come up with what they think, and a proposal to make our city a lot better than what it is. I mean, that's obviously what we try and do. I hold no fears that at the moment this is just allowing the expression of opportunity, expression of interest, so that anything that happens will come back to us before to approve, and if we don't feel like it's a fit for our city or whatever, or that's the onus on us to make the right decision about it. But until we know what they might come up with, let them go. I reckon it'd be fantastic to see what people might come up with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Perry, did you have a question?
I was a seconder of the motion, I've already spoken, but I just wanted to allay a couple of Councillor Jarman's fears, if I may, if you would indulge me.
I will indulge you, Perry.
Councillor Jarman mentioned if we get a good price, we'll take it, but that's not the primary consideration. And it's a fair question. The primary consideration is we need to look at some proposals that will be good for our city. A good investor and a good developer is not going to pay over the odds for that property anyway. So the prices will be what they will be. The market will determine that. We are all about looking at and considering good projects, good developments that can add value to our city. And as Councillor Murphy already said, it may be Edward Street, someone comes in with a 2 or 3 story development, and the car park stays pretty much as it is. And that would allay your concerns, but until we get that information in front of us, we don't know. And we're not compelled to do anything. We could get nothing, we do nothing. So.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Laycock.
Thank you, Mayor. In our notes, it does say that the release of these properties through expressions of interest does align itself with our living city plan, and I think we need to remember and come back to that. And that's what's been told to us yet again tonight. It will come back to the council table. When it's been said by Councillor Jarman that we haven't thought about car parking and thinking about retailers, we need to help them. Well, I think we are, because by moving the people in particular from the Edward Street into the multi-storey, they'll get long-term car parking and they won't get booked. I mean, how many years we've sat around this table and heard, my customers can't stay that long because they get booked, that I lose the sale of $1,000 bracelet or a pair of diamond earrings. Well, that doesn't happen anymore because they can, and they're educated now to come to the multi-storey. So we're thinking about the retailers, we're thinking about the car parking, and this hasn't been a hasty decision, as someone has mentioned in previous comments. This has been around the council table for quite a few years, and Councillor Murphy is quite correct in saying somebody could build up from the first level, because that was floated many times that we could have car parking under it, or the developer could. So I think with this one, it's particularly interesting, and I think that's probably the most important one to me that should move. I'd just like, through you, Mayor, to ask a question of the General Manager, just so it's clear in my mind again. I'm correct in saying that in the sale documents, Mr Matthews, General Manager, that there would be no land banking allowed.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Yeah, that's certainly our recommendation, that we build into any contractual documents, put the imperative on the developer to act rather than sit on the land.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Holston.
Yes, I'm going to support the recommendation as well. I do have a bit of concern with the grassed area on the northwest corner of the library, or the school as it is now. That area is part of stage 3, which we know is not going to happen as it was originally thought. But the living city area was to connect virtually up through from the Paranapple building right up to Kmart. So I think we need to consider, when this comes up, that we don't ruin stage 3 of living city and the principles that that's set up. I know a retail thing's probably not going to happen there. You all know what I'd like to see in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Still that's one That won't prevent a connection through to where we were talking about. However, Councillor Alexia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I do agree that this is the time for our city to grow and really flourish. Congratulations to Matthew Scriven for putting this towards council, because the work you put in is great. We can see our city moving forward right now, the living city, the progress that's happening in the city. This is the perfect time, I think, for our city to grow even further. And I hope everyone supports it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think everybody's had a say, in which case I'll ask Councillor Milborn to close the debate.
Thank you very much. Thank you to my fellow councillors for your words and your thoughts. I think it's really important that we stay really positive towards motions such as this, because we want to encourage people to come up with great ideas for our city, and we don't want to put any walls in front of them to discourage that from happening and think that we're going to be difficult with a good idea that is coming forward. So I really encourage all entrepreneurs and developers to step up and show us some of your good ideas, because we do want our city, and there's some terrific blocks that are right for inner city developments here and would make a great complement to our living city development. So thank you, and consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 5.7 is an amendment to our 2020-21 fees and charges schedule. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Hollister, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Hollister.
Yes, it's all in the recommendation. We need to move the fees. All about revenue, which the city's going to need for the next couple of years in a big way.
That formalising that particular place. Thank you, Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. It's exactly right. It's about formalising the process and providing some clarity and some transparency in relation to what it can cost and what it does cost and who's going to manage it. And I wish the Director of the Perinatal Arts Centre, Mr Dobson, the best of luck with it.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Are there any other comments? Councillor Hollister to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6 is information. Item 6.1 is workshops and briefings. Councillor Perry.
Seconded.
Councillor Milborn, I think, got in first. Councillor Perry.
As it reads, Madam Mayor, nothing further.
Thank you. Councillor Milborn.
Nothing further, thank you.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.2 is the Mayor's monthly report. Do I have a mover, please?
You do, Mayor. So moved.
Councillor Laycock, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Hollister, thank you. Councillor Laycock.
Nothing to add, Mayor.
Councillor Hollister.
Nothing further.
Any comments, questions?
Yes, you do, Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Murphy.
It's okay. Just in relation to meeting with TASFIRE Devonport representatives, is that in relation to, you probably don't have to elaborate, but in relation to potential movements,
It was a general discussion about their property.
their current site?
On Victoria Parade. Yep,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Laycock to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.3 is the General Manager's report for September. Do I have a mover, please? So moved. Councillor Jarman, do I have a seconder?
You do. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Laycock, Councillor Jarman.
Just a quick question through you to General Manager. My favourite subject, Taswater. Are we going to get a bit of a briefing back at a workshop about how that went?
Yes, through you, Mayor, we can add that to the next workshop again.
That would be good.
Thank you. And I'm certainly hopeful that we'll have the minutes of that meeting at least in draft form, because it was a fairly substantial conversations, and
Excellent.
hopefully the minutes will reflect that rather than me trying to remember.
No, fair enough. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nothing further.
Councillor Lack.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask literally the same question. Was there anything to be updated on from Taswater? So I'm happy to wait for the briefing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ennis.
I just had a question. The newly elected member for Braddon, Felix Ellis, what went on there? Was it, did he have something to enlighten us? To tell us about what they're going to do for Braddon?
Through you, Mayor, it was really just an introductory meeting. He came and met with the Mayor and myself to say hello.
Cup of tea.
Just started in the role.
Are there any other comments on this?
One more question.
We will close, you can ask a question, we'll close the debate. So,
Yeah.
Councillor Darby, go.
Thank you. Sorry, there was one more for you, for Matthew, if you don't mind. There was a letter that was attached that was sent to the Legislative Council, the Select Committee, to review Taswater operations. My note I've put here is good letter. Did we get a response?
Through you, Mayor, no, not yet.
Okay, so we can talk about that at the workshop. That's right. Thank you. Nothing further. Consider it closed.
Thank you, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 6.4 is General Management, People and Finance and Corporate Services report for July and August.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Do I have a
Seconded.
Second, Councillor Perry.
Really procedural, a lot of information there, and keep up with the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy is the seconder.
Yeah, agree with Councillor Perry, it's just merely procedure.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on that report? Is that a no? Councillor Perry, closed.
Consider it closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.5 is the Community Services Sector Report for July and August. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Alexia, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
You do, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alexia.
I can see all the great work the council's been doing there. The seniors work's been a great idea, and the treat to eat has been well supported as well. So there's some great initiatives there that you can see the council's been doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Laycock is the seconder of the motion.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Councillor Alexia to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.6 is the Convention and Arts report for July and August. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Alexia, a seconder. I'll second. Councillor Newell, thank you. Councillor Alexia.
It's all pretty much there in the report. It's been a tough time with COVID being with us, but great work to the group there.
Thank you. Councillor Newell.
Nothing further.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Laycock. Thank you. Councillor Alexia to close.
Consider it closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.7 is the elected members' expense report for July and August. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Laycock. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Ennis. Councillor Laycock.
It's quite straightforward. Nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ennis.
Nothing further.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Laycock to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.8 is the annual plan progress report, last 31st of August 2020. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Perry, do I have a seconder?
Second that.
Councillor Alexia, Councillor Perry.
It's more information in the attachments. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Alexia.
Nothing further to add there, Madam Mayor.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.9 is the unconfirmed minutes of the audit, Devonport City Council's audit panel, which was on the 13th of August. Do I have a move?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Murphy and Councillor Perry is the second. Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, it's all in the detailed report.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Yes, same. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Any comments or questions? Councillor Murphy, close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.10 is the unconfirmed minutes of the Cradle Coast Authority Let's meeting of the 20th of August.
So moved.
Councillor Murphy, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Councillor Alexio, Councillor Murphy.
Merely proceed.
Thank you. Councillor Alexio.
All there in the report.
Are there any comments, questions? Councillor Murphy to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 7 is section 23, committees. 7.1 is the Planning Authority Committee meeting of the 7th of August, 7th of September, sorry. Do we have a mover of the recommendation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Councillor Perry, Councillor Laycock, Councillor Perry.
Just one item that got through. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Laycock.
Nothing to add.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. That being said, I need a motion to move into closed session, please.
So moved.
Councillor Laycock, second. Councillor Milborn, Councillor Laycock. Nothing to add.
No, nothing to add.
Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. That brings to a close our open section of this month's meeting. Thank you everyone for attending. And we'll see you next month. Thank you.